All right, good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's event. My name is Ryan Smith. I am the Wellness Program Administrator with Employee Development and Wellness Services. Today, we'll be hosting a special session on taking care of your physical, mental, and emotional well-being. It's an online panel focusing on the return to on-campus work. It also coincides with National Safety Month, which we'll be highlighting as an observance today. Before we get started, just a couple housekeeping rules. We will be recording the content of this session. The only content that will be recorded, however, is going to be the PowerPoint slides, as well as the things you will hear myself and the guest panelists say. We are going to be making use of the chat box feature within WebEx. There will be times throughout the presentation today where you'll have the opportunity to voice any comments or questions that you may have for the panelists. Again, we'll be making use of the chat box feature for that. If you wish to remain anonymous when submitting your comment or question, make sure that in the chat box feature, you have selected under the to line for it to go to the host. If it only goes to the host, it will come directly to me as the moderator, and I'll be able to anonymously read your question for the panelists. In the event that you wish for your comment to be seen by others as well, you can change the to line to everyone. Again, the content of the chat box will not be recorded or shared in order to keep that portion anonymous for those who wish to not have their name attached to their question. With that being said, we will go ahead and get started with some introductions. As I mentioned, my name is Ryan Smith. I am joined today by Cheryl Johnson-Ransaw, the Director of Employee Development and Wellness Services. She'll be leading the beginning portion of today's event. And then we'll move into our guest panelists who will have an opportunity to provide specific updates and answer any questions related to their department. We'll be joined by Jessica Kane from the Office of Employee Relations. She is the Senior Employee Relations Specialist. We'll also have Quinata Cameron Mallard from the Benefits Office. She is the Assistant Director. We'll have Ramesh Vakamudi from the Facilities and Building Services. He's the Vice President. And then lastly, we will have Anthony Coleman from the Georgia State Police Department. He is the Georgia State Police Department Police Chief. As I mentioned, we'll be making use of that chat feature. So again, during each segment of today's presentation for each of our panelists, if you have a question, please feel free to go ahead and post it in the chat box. At the end of each panelist presentation, we'll have that opportunity to read out those comments and read out those questions as well. Without further ado, I'm going to pass things over to Cheryl Johnson-Ransaw. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for attending today's special event. We are very pleased to host this gathering, to have an opportunity to address some really important concerns during this challenging time in which we're working and living. Today's objectives include just an acknowledgement initially about the traumatic events and challenges that we have all faced during the past year and a half as a result of COVID-19. And we are very pleased to have this panel presentation that will also provide an opportunity to give information highlighting transition plans as we are gearing up for returning to on-campus work, and sharing updates on important information, and obviously addressing health and safety updates as well. This event is intended to also provide an opportunity for attendees to raise questions and for us to have discussion. And so if you have concerns, as Ryan mentioned, you may take advantage of the chat feature, and we will monitor that throughout the event. And last but not least, we will address the importance of the practice of self-care and looking at what each of us needs to do in terms of helping to take care of our physical, mental, and emotional health during these challenging times. And we want to underscore that there are resources available. And so we will share information on benefits and resources that are available, provided by Georgia State and the University System of Georgia. So this has been a chapter like no other in terms of what we have faced during the past year and a half dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic. And obviously, we have all been affected by COVID-19. How we have dealt with it certainly varies with everyone's unique experiences. And at this point in time, we certainly hope that people are faring well. But as we think about what happened this past year, it certainly is pretty mind-boggling. And we were forced to have to make major adjustments in our work life, and it called for an extreme sense of trying to adapt day to day. And there was no guidebook to help us through that process, but the tremendous amount of stress that everyone experiences is so critical to acknowledge, because even though we are certainly at a better place now, there's still a lot for us to have to deal with. And again, this is why we are wanting to just take this journey and to address what we have been dealing with as we now move into a new phase. So now we're in a chapter of addressing and looking at very definite plans for returning to on-campus work, fast forwarding to experiencing, again, major transitions, major adjustments, both professionally and personally. This is a new normal. This is a period in which we all have been dealing with multiple stressors and trying to figure out the best ways of dealing with that. And it's great that we have an opportunity to be talking about this transition, because it clearly represents the fact that this is a positive point in time in this new chapter and this new normal. But clearly we know that there still are a lot of concerns, a lot of questions, a lot of anxieties, and that's another reason that we are offering this session today. So this is a month that we recognize as National Safety Month in June annually, and it historically was founded by the National Safety Council, a nonprofit organization, and it focuses on trying to keep people safe from not just the workplace, but any place. And it's so appropriate and so timely that this year's themes center around the obvious, to include addressing COVID-19 safety concerns, and obviously looking at the work factor, the on-the-job factor, in terms of trying to help people feel safe. And again, noticing and realizing that it's not just about the workplace, but it's about every place. That's important because we're all now faced in this new normal. This is an opportunity for us to communicate that we're here to offer support, that we care about your health and well-being, and we recognize that when we talk about what all of us have been experiencing during this past year and a half, addressing the COVID-19 pandemic, that it's just critical that we look at multiple factors when we talk about health. We need to first acknowledge that what we've experienced has truly been traumatic, and it has been stressful. And that's just talking about COVID-19. People have to factor in what else they have been and are dealing with in terms of other personal and or professional stressors. So the multiple aspects of health and well-being that we underscore that are critically important are the physical, the mental, and the emotional. And we want to encourage and promote opportunities for gatherings like this to encourage conversations, discussions, because it is critical that we address that and talk about the concerns, talk about the anxieties. Certainly, we've been dealing with the fears around the virus. We've been dealing with losses and grieving all of the different losses, which not only address death, but changes that have occurred, and looking forward to the uncertainties, even with the future. So again, we want to underscore that we feel that the mental, the physical, and the emotional aspects of health and well-being are equally important. We want to respect and support and communicate and help everyone try to prepare as we come back to this point in time now of addressing the return to work concerns. And we're so thankful to have this panel of guest speakers who will be addressing different aspects of the services that they provide, as well as sharing the information that we hope will be informative for you today.
All right, thank you, Cheryl. And we did have so a couple questions that came through, and I'm just gonna, I think this one might actually be best answered by you, and then I'm going to save some of the other ones for our guest panelists. One question was just around, I think, the terminology of referring to it as a new normal, when it's some people feel like it's going back to a pre-COVID office arrangement. So could you maybe talk a little bit or clarify a little bit about kind of that new normal terminology as it will apply to our return to on-campus work?
Okay, well, the general term new normal is one of referencing and acknowledging that this is a point in time that we have not experienced before. So there's a broader reference that I've made in terms of using that, and I think it's one that now has been embraced nationally, internationally, in terms of just recognizing that because of the COVID-19 pandemic, that there's no history that we can revisit that will mimic what we're experiencing now. And so as we talk about returning to work even, certainly we will be discussing the return to normal operations. But again, this is referencing and acknowledging that we're coming back to a place after having been through this period of addressing a pandemic. And so even though we will talk about and plans are in place for people to return to, quote, normal operations, there's still the acknowledgement that we're coming back because of this new chapter that we are experiencing. And as we hear from the guest panelists, certainly there will be an opportunity to get some updates about what that looks like in terms of planning, and we can address other concerns and questions as well.
All right, thank you. With that, we will go ahead and transition to our first guest panelist. Again, Jessica Kane, Senior Employees Relations Specialist with the Office of Employee Relations. So Jessica, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you, Ryan. Appreciate your help. Good morning, everyone. As he mentioned, I'm Jessica Kane, Employee Relations Specialist in Human Resources, and I'm excited to have the opportunity to speak about returning to work on behalf of our Employee Relations Department. I personally want to thank the EDWS team for providing this training and information, as I think it's important for all employees as we transition. Next slide, please. So today I'll be sharing information about what to expect when you return to work, information about remote work agreements, how to manage during the transition, and resources that may be helpful. And please note, as they mentioned, I'm happy to take any general questions as I go over the slides or after I've completed them. However, if you have a specific concern that may include confidential information about yourself or your department, please reach out to our office directly to schedule a time to connect offline, and I'll provide that contact information at the end. Next slide. Can we go back to the slide right before that? There we go. Thank you. So in May, we all received the campus broadcast stating that beginning July 1, Georgia State will return to normal campus operations. The email outlined guidance on face coverings, physical distancing, and the transition back to work for all campuses, as well as worksite flexibility. Since that announcement, departments, along with their HR officers, have been meeting regularly to prepare and provide clear, detailed procedures and expectations to staff about returning to work and also remote work agreements. So while the university and your department are making plans for the transition, it only makes sense that you should do the same. Currently, we have just a little over 2 weeks before the return to work effective date. So if you haven't already begun to personally plan for yourself to return to the office, I encourage you to start today. Transitioning back to work after working remotely for quite some time may be easy for some and difficult for others. Here are a few things that you can consider as you're personally preparing to work in the office again. First and foremost, just be aware about how you're feeling about returning to work. It's completely natural to feel apprehensive about going back to the office. So if you have any concerns, address them with your supervisor, HRO, or our office before you return. You might also consider receiving confidential assistance from resources provided through the EDWS team or through benefits. Also consider physically preparing yourself by visiting your workspace prior to your official return date. If your office has been vacant for a year, your office space may have changed. I know a lot of spaces have put up plexiglass and moved things around, or your office space may need some cleaning or organizing. This visit can also be a good time for you to return any equipment or items that you were approved to remove from your office to use at home. And just taking that time to physically prepare your space before your actual return will help your official first day back go smoothly. And finally, it's important to mentally prepare for the return. Take time to think about adjustments that need to be made to your daily schedule to ensure that you have a successful return. For example, you may need to work out new family routines, establish a different sleep schedule, and even plan your daily commute to and from the office. Next slide. As you think of ways to personally prepare yourself to return to the office, if applicable, you may consider submitting a remote work request. Visit the remote work request webpage to thoroughly review the policy and procedures before submitting a request. Also review any information provided by your department and or your HR officer regarding remote work. Reviewing internal information that's been shared will help you understand the maximum number of days that can be requested for remote working. While the decision to approve remote work is at the discretion of the supervisor, the following eligibility factors must be met. Your responsibilities must be able to be performed away from a regular work location without impacting productivity. The employee must be past their provisional period to be eligible to work remotely. An employee must have satisfactory evaluation and performance, so you cannot be in any active disciplinary actions or on a performance improvement plan. And finally, temporary employees may work remotely if there's a business need that justifies that assignment. And while work requests can be made at any time to work remotely, in planning to return to campus, if you wish to enter a flexible work agreement for the fall semester or upcoming academic year, you're encouraged to submit that request by June 30. And this will provide supervisors enough time to determine how or if a request can be accommodated. Next slide. As you transition to in-office work and your schedule and location are confirmed, consider the following as you navigate the new normal each day. For your safety and the safety of others, please continue to follow all GSU guidelines for in-office work. You can review helpful information on the Georgia State Ahead website. It's also important to ensure that you understand all expectations set by your supervisor for in-office and remote work. These expectations could include topics such as your start time, communication plans, and performance. All expectations should be discussed and confirmed before remote work begins. Also, as you return to work, be sure to communicate any challenges you encounter. While we've worked very hard to strategically roll out a comprehensive return to work plan, there may be things that were missed. Reporting your issues to your supervisor, HRO, or employee relations can help management make important changes to policies and procedures. And finally, please be flexible throughout the transition. With everyone returning to pre-COVID work arrangements, you should expect that with new information and changing conditions, procedures may shift over time. This will require everyone to be flexible and adapt while continuing to provide excellent service. Next slide. So if you have any questions or concerns as you prepare to return to work, please contact your HR officer, supervisor, or employee relations at any time. And you can also find the most up-to-date information listed on the websites on the slide. Thank you so much, and I'll take any questions you may have.
All right, thank you so much, Jessica. We did have a few comments and some questions, and I'll read those out. Of course, understanding that, as you mentioned, some of these questions may be best answered by a private request to the employee relations email. One question we did have was if there was, and I think this is probably most closely related to your department, so I apologize if it's not quite specific enough, but the question was if there is a way to search for open positions within the University System of Georgia where remote working is available as more of a primary option.
That's a good question. I'm not sure. I will have to follow up on that because I'm not sure how that works as far as searching for those open positions.
For this person who asked that question, would it be beneficial for them to potentially reach out to that employee relations email, or do you know of another resource that might be a better fit for that?
There is another resource, but how about we just have them contact our employee relations office and I can get them connected to the appropriate person.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. We did have another comment here regarding just, I think, some of the language that was used regarding return to work. And just for clarification, I think the typical language that we've been using is return to on-campus work. Of course, everyone has certainly been working diligently for the past over a year now. And that work the work never stopped. But this is kind of billed as a return to on-campus work. Just to kind of clarify that and address one of the comments I saw regarding the language used there.
Agreed.
And I believe that was all the questions and comments for this particular section. So thank you again so much, Jessica. We really appreciate your time today.
No problem. Thank you.
Okay, and next up, we have Quinata Cameron Mallard, the Assistant Director from the Benefits Office.
All right, good morning, everyone. Thank you, Ryan. As Ryan stated, my name is Quinata Cameron Mallard, and I am the Assistant Director of Benefits, FMLA, and ADA. So we will start with the alternative work arrangements. So as we all know, Georgia State University is preparing for normal operations beginning July 1. Supervisors will be communicating, or probably already have started communicating with their department with regards to their plans for their respective areas. University employees should prepare to transition back to their pre-COVID-19 work arrangements no later than July 1. So for all employees who were granted an alternative work arrangement, they have been informed via the Office of the President that they should be preparing to return to those pre-COVID-19 work arrangements no later than July 1st. And again, supervisors will be communicating their respective plans for their areas. Alternative work arrangements, as we know, were granted to employees for fall 2020 or possibly spring or spring 2021 due to being at an increased risk for severe illness from COVID-19. And so these arrangements will end. All employees who may have questions regarding this information, of course, can reach out to the benefits office and we can further discuss. Now, separately, I would like to add that we are now receiving requests for information regarding an accommodation under the Americans with Disabilities Act. So briefly today, I will provide the definition of an individual with a disability. Unfortunately, I will not be able to go through the ADA process due to time constraints. However, an individual with a disability is defined by the Americans with Disabilities Act as a physical or mental impairment that substantially limits one or more major life activities. A person who has a history or record of such an impairment, or a person who is regarded as or perceived as having such an impairment. So with regards to requests for accommodations, some employees are tying it to being at higher risk for severe illness. But again, we would like to remind employees that under the ADA, it is qualified individuals with a disability. Now, also, each request for an accommodation is considered on a case-by-case basis. So as Jessica Kane mentioned earlier, anyone who has specific questions or would like to discuss their specific situations, please feel free to reach out to the benefits office, specifically myself, Quinata Cameron Mallard, to request to speak with me or meet with me so that we can further discuss your situation. All right, next slide, please. All right, this is a reminder. Hopefully everyone has received this information by now, but just a reminder that employees, for the COVID-19 vaccination leave, employees may take up to 8 hours of non-closure emergency leave for the purpose of receiving a COVID-19 vaccine. So employees that are receiving a 2-dose vaccine, this is a total of up to 8 hours across both doses. The leave is for the employee only. It does not cover time off for dependents. And as part of the process and procedures, the employee who's requesting the non-closure emergency leave should provide proof of vaccination. Also, the employee must request this through their supervisor. So once they request the COVID-19 vaccination leave, which is the non-closure emergency leave, the supervisor will enter that onto the employee's timesheet, okay? This is not something that an employee can go in and request as an absence event or request as an absence. They must just notify their supervisor so that the supervisor can enter it directly onto the timesheet. And those are the respective codes with regards to hourly paid and salary paid employees. All right, next slide, please. Okay, so employees who experience severe negative side effects that prevent them from performing their job duties may take up to 16 hours of non-closure emergency leave. So for an employee who's receiving a 2-dose vaccination, they will be able to request up to a total of 16 hours across both doses. And the process for this is the same as the 8-hour due to receiving the vaccine. So the employee, if they're experiencing negative side effects, they would notify their supervisor, and the supervisor will enter the non-closure emergency leave directly onto their timesheet, okay? And those are the respective codes based on whether or not the employee is hourly paid or salary paid. Also, after an employee has exhausted the non-closure emergency leave balances that are provided, they may utilize their own accrued leave if they are continuing to be out of work. due to the negative side effects. All right, so that is all the information I have with regards to alternative work arrangements as well as the COVID-19 vaccination leave. Do we have any questions?
Thank you so much for covering that information, Quinata. At this time, I do not see any questions regarding the material that was just covered. But in the event that anyone has a question and it comes up a little later, if you just want to let me know that it was directed at Quinata, we can circle back to that at the end of today's presentation. So thank you again, Quinata.
Thank you, Ron. And again, if anyone has any specific questions regarding their own situation, please feel free to reach out to the benefits office. Thank you all. Have a good day.
Okay, next up we have Ramesh Vakamudi, the Vice President of the Facilities and Building Services. And I'm actually going to stop sharing my screen for a moment and pass presenter rights over to him so that he can share with us some information that he's prepared for today. So give me just a moment here.
Thanks, Ryan. Can I start?
Yes, Ramesh, I believe you should have presenter rights now. So if you want to share your screen, you should be good to go.
Yeah, I will in a minute. Thank you for the opportunity to talk to the campus community and answer any questions they may have. Facilities management, we are responsible for all campus facilities or 15 million square feet or 100 buildings, 6 campuses. The 2 or 3 primary areas I want to focus. One is the cleaning and the sanitation schedules. The second one is the air distribution systems, and the third one is the campus signage itself, COVID-19 signage. The cleaning and sanitation schedule, we posted our schedules on the GSU website and also on the facilities management website. That is valid until end of this month. Starting July 1st, we'll transition back to our normal cleaning schedules, and we are working on those details right now, and we'll be posting that information shortly in next week or so. So that's coming, but I just want to inform everybody that we'll be transitioning starting July 1st into normal cleaning schedule. The air distribution systems itself, let me share this information. Can everybody see this?
Yes, we can.
Spreadsheet? Okay. So for the last 1 year, this has been a primary concern for campus community, and we answered a lot of questions initially when COVID-19 came across with air filtration systems and air distribution systems within the campus buildings. We have buildings which range from 5 years to 100 years, and the equipment in the buildings itself range, 20, 30, 40 years old with the varying capabilities within these buildings, sometimes within the floors. What we've been doing is trying to increase the outside air as much as we could. Typically, they're anywhere from 30 to 40%, and we try to increase it to 50% where feasible. And it changes almost from sometimes day to day, week to week, because it also depends on the relative humidity outside and the temperatures. Having said that, what we started doing since a year ago is we researched and found that the UV lamp installation in the main distribution system would be effective for disinfecting the air intakes. So we started that process a year ago, and we're doing that in different phases. We completed already 2 phases. There are about 20 or 22 buildings, and then we're getting ready for phase 3. We just issued contracts for phase 3, and this spreadsheet you see here shows all the buildings, all the buildings which are listed, which are highlighted in green, already received these UV lights in the air handling units, and all the buildings which are highlighted in blue are scheduled to go in phase 3. And some are scheduled for later phase 4, few of them, very few of them for phase 4. There are some buildings which are not listed in any of the phases because technically it's not feasible to install these UV lights in those air handling units. That's the reason why they're not on that list. So we're making good progress on this initiative. Funding was provided by the university, and we're rolling with it. And then in addition to that, we were installing portable air filtration systems in certain high density classrooms and computer labs across the campus. I'm looking at some of my information here. Also, regarding the signage and the social distancing, we started removing all the COVID-19 signage from main entrances in the buildings and public areas. We also started removing the social distancing, sit here, seater markings. So that when we come back July, August, they're not there anymore because again, we're following the CDC guidelines there, and also the direction we got from the Board of Regents and the Office of the President. We are retaining the social distancing guidelines within the classrooms and the instructional labs until end of the summer semester. We'll start removing them after July and before the start of the fall semester. And those will happen within a month span there. So that's the information I have. And also I want to broadcast, if you have any requests of the facilities management, you can call our customer service center 0700 and place a work order request. And if you need any changes to your office areas, like plexiglass, barriers, which we've been doing that for almost a year now. We're assisting several departments. You need to fill in an FMR, which is facility modification request. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
All right, thank you for sharing that information. We did have a question regarding on the spreadsheet here that you were sharing. Someone asked why the College of Education and Human Development was listed as not applicable.
Because it's technically not feasible for us to install in that building. We looked into it. The air handling unit in that building is not feasible for UV installation.
Okay, thank you. And give me just a moment while I browse the chat to make sure I didn't miss any questions. Okay, someone asked, has Dalberg Hall been addressed?
Yes. In fact, it's going in, I think it's current phase 3. Yeah, 0021.
Okay, thank you. And then there was just a brief follow-up question asking if you might, they were asking why it isn't feasible to install the lamps in the College of Education.
Again, I need to get my mechanical engineer to explain this, but this gets very technical. Simply sometimes there's not, easy way to get there. But I can follow up with the dean's office in the College of Education if that's required.
All right, and I actually, we're getting a couple different requests for various buildings. Is this a document that we're able to share with participants after the event today so that they might be able to refer to their specific building or workplace? Or
Yeah.
is there another resource for them? Okay.
We will be posting this on our website too, but yeah, you can share this with them.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. So I do see, again, we have a couple questions about specific buildings. I'm sure everyone is curious about their workplace. So we'll be able to share this document so that you can take a glance at your specific building of concern or buildings of concern. All right. I don't see any additional questions at this time. So thank you again so much for your time. We really appreciate it. And we'll be sure to share this information with everyone on the call today.
Yeah, one clarification, Ryan, on this, you won't see a lot of, residential, residence life buildings, dorms. Again, those are, again, maintained by the student housing. And if you see some here, usually we're installing the dining areas of those facilities like the Piedmont North and Patton Hall dining halls.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, and bear with me just a moment as we transition back to our PowerPoint presentation today. Okay, so our final guest panelist is from the police department, and that's Chief Anthony Coleman. And I will turn it over to you.
Hey, good morning, everybody. I don't have a PowerPoint, so I'll just put my video on if you guys can see that. If not, it's on. So we have about 300 police officers, security officers, employees in the police department. And those of you that are concerned about coming back to campus, just give you a little heads up. We actually never left. We kept a full staff of police security here since the outbreak in March of 2020. We did maintain our CDC guidelines, and we did have some officers and security personnel that came down with COVID. However, we did background chasing, and it never came back to the police department. There's usually some outside event they attended, funeral or something like that. So that's some positive news for you guys that are coming back. If you maintain some of the guidelines that some of the previous panelists have said, you will probably end up being safe. That was before the vaccine came out. So that worked out pretty well for us. Since March of 2020, we've dealt with some civil unrest, police reform, and in between that, we had to deal with COVID. So we've dealt with a lot over the past year and a half. Once we managed to get those things under control, we now notice throughout the city, I'm sure you guys see it every weekend, that there is an increase in violent crime really throughout the metro Atlanta area. However, at the GSU footprint, we've noticed a significant decrease in all those crimes on our campus. Now, that obviously can be attributed to there's no students here, there's no faculty or staff here. However, our men and women that are out there are maintaining a high visible presence on our campus to deter these type of things from happening. I think the last thing that was of any type of serious nature that occurred in our downtown area was during the All-Star weekend at the gas station across from one of our houses. There was an individual that was robbed and was shot and had nothing to do with GSU, but it is in our downtown footprint. So we put that out, information out to our campus community. We will continue to educate our faculty, staff, and students as you guys come back on safety measures that we are having and things that we would like for you guys to maintain. And in that process, when you guys do come back to campus and are coming back to campus, we will always maintain high police presence, high police visibility. And if you have any questions or concerns, you can contact me directly or you can contact one of our officers. And I encourage you guys to download our Live Safe app to report any type of incidents that you may incur. Anytime you feel uncomfortable, just make sure you call the police. Like I said, we're out there. If the guys have any questions, good time to ask them now.
All right, thank you so much, Chief Coleman. We did have a question, a couple questions actually coming through here. One of them is, I'll just read it here. Question regarding public safety. In light of the recent spike in crime in the Buckhead area, what role will GSU police take? Are there any safety measures, protocols as it relates to partnering with Tower Place Security and the APD to ensure the safety of Buckhead employees?
Sure. What we'll do once we return back to campus, years ago, we used to do patrols out there when there were concerns. So we'll send our officers to do patrols out there to increase the presence. I know there's security in the building and also APDs in the area, but we'll send our officers out there to do additional patrols of that building.
All right, thank you. I see another question here asking about the strategies for handling the homeless population.
GSU police, we're kind of handcuffed in that because we don't have the facilities or the let's say the backing of the city right now to do a lot with the homeless. There is an increased homeless population in the downtown area. One thing we can do is what we have been doing is maintaining high visibility, and with no one in the buildings, we're able to locate those individuals when they're around campus, and we can kind of see those individuals a little bit better now. But once the students and the faculty and staff comes back on campus, I'm sure there will be more of a presence of homeless that you probably hadn't noticed before you guys left. But once again, use the Live Safe app, give us a call, and we will definitely deal with those individuals when we have to deal with those individuals.
I appreciate that. And certainly, I see we have a question here regarding the location of some of the blue phones. And I know that the Live Safe app, does that function as a good alternative potentially for in the app blue phone, or do you have recommendations for that?
Yes, the Live Safe app will be in place of the blue phones. The blue phones I've been here since '92, and the blue phones have been here since '92. One thing we've noticed over the past 10 to 12 years is that the blue phones were not being used at all. When I first started, the phones were used on occasion because people didn't have cell phones. That was in the early '90s. Now that everyone has cell phones, we find the best measure to use those cell phones to contact the police and let us know. That's why we have the Live Safe app. You can contact the police. You can send us pictures of what's going on rather than picking up a blue phone and just letting us know your location.
Okay, thank you for that. So certainly, okay, and then just a follow-up question. If they're asking what is the best way to use the Live Safe app, or if you have a recommendation for a resource they might be able to go to learn how to use it, we'd be happy to share that after today's presentation.
Sure. Once you download the app, it'll ask you what university. You put Georgia State University in there, and it is pretty much self-explanatory. It's almost like a text/function where you can you don't necessarily want to call the police, so you can use that app to actually call the police. You can use that app to report something. If you just say, hey, look, I just want to report this to the police, but I don't feel like calling them, you can just type it in and say, okay, this is what's going on. Or if you need a safety escort, or if you just want to let us know that I'm leaving this building, going to this building, kind of have the police look out for us, and we'll do that also.
Okay, thank you for that. And I saw a question about the name of the app. Again, it's the Live Safe app, which is listed in the chat there. When we send out some follow-up information regarding today's presentation, I'll be sure to include the details on that so anyone interested can download that app and have access to it. And then we had one more follow-up question related to the Buckhead security, and it was asking about if the patrols in Buckhead are around the clock kind of patrols, or if they're at specific times of the day, like in the evenings when people might be going to the parking garage to go home, that sort of thing.
There'll be sporadic patrols. However, whomever's asking the question, if you want to just contact me directly, if you have some concerns about the Buckhead area, we can address those concerns. I hate to go back and forth and just not answer your question. If you can, my number is 404-413-3217. That's my office number, 3217. So you can just call me directly and we can discuss those.
Okay, and I'm going to put that in the chat if that's all right. So that was 404-413-3217.
That's correct.
Okay, I'll be sharing that in the chat. So if anyone needs to use that contact information, it's listed there. Okay. All right, I don't see any additional questions, but again, thank you so much for your time today. We really appreciate it. I know there were a lot of people who had some concerns, and I'm glad we were able to get those addressed. So thank you again.
Ryan,
Yes.
I just sent a response to the UV lights in the COE. We can follow up the individual staff member if that's a preference with the why we couldn't do it in the College of Education building or even the dean's office, whatever is preferred, we can do that. Also, I want to clarify again, we will be updating that list because sometimes we may have to change the list as the contractor gets into these areas. It may not be feasible based on the field conditions, but we'll be updating as that information becomes available.
All right, thank you. And the participant who asked that question did just send me their contact information, so I'll be sure to connect you two after today's call.
Not a problem.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and I'm going to actually turn things back over to Cheryl. I know we have a couple questions that are coming through in the chat. We're going to save those, and then we'll be able to address any final questions at the end.
All right. Well, I also want to thank our guest panelists for participating in today's online panel to cover such important information and sharing updates. And as we begin to wrap up today's session, certainly want to just recognize that now more than ever, this is a time for all of us to think about practicing self-care, the importance of practicing and maintaining self-care for resilience during this period in time. And without going into all details, because if you've attended our sessions, you know that EDWS has been promoting healthy lifestyles, offering wellness on the web events throughout this past year, and starting with the very basics, I think that we sometimes overlook or minimize. It's just important to look at all of the areas and aspects of our life that we can manage, that we can control, and focusing back on doing the best for ourselves so that we can function at a better level. And obviously, if we have major responsibilities, both professionally and personally, having to care for others and families or elsewhere, it does need to start with self-care. And so, looking at what you're doing in the way of getting proper rest and sleep, maintaining a healthy diet, exercising, and we talk about the physical aspects, but again, this is about recognizing that so much that we need to do also impacts our mental and emotional well-being as well. And so looking at what else to factor in to enhance and enrich your day-to-day living is just so critical, including building a support and strengthening relationships. And we certainly encourage people to consider getting professional help when it's needed. And we take this opportunity again to just encourage people to utilize the services, the benefits that are available, the resources available offered by GSU as well as through the University System of Georgia. Next slide. And speaking of resources here, we just want to list the primary campus resources, all of which have been represented by our guest panelists today, starting with EDWS, and certainly encourage people to reach out, to call, email us if you want information, want clarity on what we're doing. And certainly we offer within our services the faculty and staff assistance internal EAP as a point where people may reach out for initial consultations, crisis management services, and we have a web based feature that's available through Therapy Assistance Online that people may access on their own. We did have a survey that should have gone out, I believe, yesterday, campus-wide. We are really interested in soliciting feedback from everyone in terms of our offerings and how you prefer to participate and attend, whether in person or virtually. Obviously, this past year, we have been truly virtual in what we've offered. And as we are beginning to plan for the summer and fall, we certainly want to hear from you in terms of your experiences, your preferences, so that we can do more strategic planning in the future. The additional contact information you see listed for the other offices represented by today's guest panelists. And the next slide provides information on our external EAP KeyPro that we certainly want people to take advantage of. And that's at no cost. That's available 24 hours, 7 days a week, providing just excellent services covering a wide range of areas, including work, life resources, legal, financial, childcare, elder care. So please note those resources as well. And last, just wanting to list some additional links. You've heard from a couple of panelists who provided some specific information. Employee relations provided some additional information, but here we're just identifying some key links that you may access for updates as it relates to COVID-19 and beyond. Certainly, not only are we encouraging people to take advantage of the Georgia State resources, but we've also listed the university system wellbeing events link, as well as Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
All right. Thank you, Cheryl, for those additional resources. And we have had a question come through that I can present to all the panelists now, and certainly anyone who wants to answer it or refer to one of the resources we mentioned can. The question is, can anyone speak on the return to work practice for those who contract COVID-19 going forward? Specifically, how long should someone be symptom-free before returning to work?
All right, this is Quiniata. So I will try to address that question. So we are continuing to adhere to the CDC guidelines with regards to COVID-19, quarantine, and also at Georgia State University, the Student Health Clinic is designated as the office that is tracking and assisting with regards to the quarantine time period. So I would like to inform you all that if you have any additional questions specifically with regards to the quarantine and etc., you may reach out to the benefits office. And again, we will communicate with the Student Health Clinic with regards to those specific questions. Hope that answered your question. So as an additional resource, the Student Health Clinic is available to assist with tracking and providing information.
All right. Thank you for taking the time to address that. Okay, and we'll pause here for just a minute. And if anyone else has additional comments or additional questions, please enter them in the chat now. All right, I do not see any additional questions or comments at this time. As mentioned, if anyone has additional questions and you know a specific department that you want to address it with, you are welcome to use the contact information provided in this PowerPoint. We will be sending this as follow-up information to everyone who attended today. So you'll have a copy of these resource links, a copy of the contact information. In the event that you're not sure who to contact, feel free to contact us at edws@gsu.edu, and we can certainly work to try to get you set up with the right person and get you help getting that question answered. Again, I want to extend a huge thank you to all of our guest panelists who participated with us today. This event could not have been possible without you, and we are very thankful for your time and for the valuable information that you provided, and we'll be sure to pass those resources along to everyone via email for them to refer to again at a later time or to share with colleagues who may not have been able to attend today. And thank you again to all of our participants as well. We know that this is a very important and significant topic for all of us as we look to the future and we start to prepare for that return to on-campus work as we start to transition out of this phase and into the new one that we're all hopeful and looking forward to. So again, thank you for your time. Thank you for expressing your concerns and questions. Cheryl, did you have any closing comments before we wrap up for today?
I also want to thank all of our attendees as well, and certainly want to wish everyone a safe journey as we are preparing to transition to on-campus work. And again, just invite you to reach out to our office for any follow-up questions or concerns from today's session. We do expect to have some other offerings over the next month or so. So pay attention, if you will, to our calendar, and we'll keep you updated as we plan those out. But thank you again. Take care and stay safe.